neglected and overlooked. Yet this forlorn ivy-clad ruin played a significant role in the history of the village of Hook. Although the exact date the kiln was built is lost in the mists of time, many similar constructions around Pembrokeshire's coast and waterways were constructed by local men more than 150 years ago. The kiln's vital role only came to an end in the early 1900s, and it was no coincidence that it was built a stone's throw from the river and on a much used and established cart track that is now the popular Boggy Lane. To put this period into context, this would have been about the time of the American Civil War, the launching of Britain's first ironclad warship, the Warrior, which of course spent a large part of her life moored off Burton, and Queen Victoria, crowned Empress of India. Thanks to the Hook History Society, ably supported by the Heritage Lottery Fund, the fascinating story of the old kiln is available to generations to come, and they can be reminded of an interesting chapter in the area's past. Apart from deriving its very name from the bend in the river above which the village stands, Hook's three principal providers of wealth and employment have depended on the river. At its peak of production, well over 200 men, and indeed women, were employed mining anthracite of such quality it was dubbed Black Diamond. Compass fishing is still performed on the river today, albeit in a much reduced and strictly licensed manner. Generations of men practice this ancient art fishing on the Cleddau's upper reaches. Prize salmon and suin grace the displays of many county fishmongers and help feed large families existing on traditionally low wages. The third provider of work for the residents, and often overlooked as a major source of employment, was agriculture, which also played an important role in the development of the village. Agriculture relied on the river, as waterborne traffic delivered a crucially important commodity on which crop growing was totally dependent, and that was limestone. Until the early 20th century, lime was a crucial agricultural product, as farmers used it widely as a fertilizer to improve acidic soil. It is believed that some of the old kilns date from the time of the Napoleonic Wars, when fast-growing populations in the industrial centres needed more food, and the answer was improved productivity. Each acre must produce more, was the order of the day. And lime was the cornerstone of the successful production of greater farming yields. Almost every creek up and down the Haven had its own lime kiln, and the one that served farms in Hook was situated in Boggy Lane. Quicklime would be spread at something like 4 tons to the acre, and before spreading the lime would have been slaked. Slaking was a process whereby water converted the quicklime to calcium hydroxide. Without slaking, the product would have killed anything growing. To meet the demand for lime, practically all coastal and riverside communities had a lime kiln to which limestone would be brought, in the main from South Pembrokeshire, and by boat. Vessels would sometimes run aground on the high tide and the stone would be unloaded into waiting horse-drawn carts. Other times the craft would, on the high tide, get as close as possible to the shore before tossing the stone overboard. In Hook's case, the stone would arrive at Sprinkle Pill, and then taken by horse and cart along the bridle path linking Boggy Lane with the shore. In the kiln, the limestone and colm would be loaded in layers on a tightly packed base of gorse, or furze as it was commonly known in those days. The furze acted as kindling. This process would take up to 60 hours and would need the constant attention of the lime burner, who invariably lived in a cottage close to the kiln. Lime was also in great demand as lime mortar for building. This was before Portland cement was available, and as lime wash, which was widely used to paint the stone cottages and farmhouses of the day. Other less publicised use was the use of lime to dispose of the bodies of executed criminals. Thankfully, there wasn't much call for this in Hook. Hook's lime kiln was in Boggy Lane, and sadly this beacon of Hook's colourful and interesting past had suffered from the ravages of time and had become a forlorn and rather sad unidentifiable ruin. Encouraged by the community council, and with the wholehearted and enthusiastic support of the landowners, Mr. and Mrs. Simon Clark, the Village History Society took on the challenge, and in no time Operation Save the Old Kiln was underway. Over the years, 3 substantial trees had grown literally through the kiln, but local contractor John Colnett was on hand to remedy the situation. He was able to remove the trees without further damaging the rather precarious old structure. The real transformation came about when a work party from the Friends of the Pembrokeshire Coast National Park stepped into the breach. The volunteers spent several days picking off ivy, levelling the site around the kiln and clearing years of debris that had gathered in the bowl of the furnace. The furnace vents, which were designed to encourage the kiln to huge temperatures and from where the finished product would have been released, were systematically cleared. No sooner had the Friends of the National Park completed their work when local builder Lionel Morgan started the marathon jigsaw of rebuilding the walls of the kiln using, wherever possible, the recycled stone that was first put in place many generations before. Such was the level of deterioration that 1 or 2 minor modern construction aids had to be incorporated to keep the project within budget. But experts in the field were agreed that the end product was ably illustrated an important and almost forgotten facet of the riverside history. Simultaneously, with the assistance of design and interpretation experts from the Pembrokeshire Coast National Park Authority, who from day one provided invaluable advice and practical help, a new and colourful bilingual interpretative panel was written and illustrated.
Taken from this book, or whether you've got a different drawing. So this is on page 11.
The panel stands on a Welsh oak lectern, manufactured at the National Park Authority's Sustainable Wood Centre in the heart of the Gwaun Valley. In conjunction with the kiln restoration, the History Society prepared a leaflet highlighting a number of walks in and around the kiln. There are a dozen or so walks described in the leaflet. They vary in length and degrees of difficulty, but all taken with care illustrate that despite its industrial past, Hook is blessed with scenery and landscapes that are second to none. So in just over a year, Operation Save the Old Lime Kiln was completed. A shapeless heap of moss-covered stones had been given a facelift, and walkers, as they stroll along Boggy Lane, can pause and be reminded of Hook's fascinating history and the significant role the old kiln played in both the agricultural and building industries all those years ago.